as Maggie said, we tend to work on issues that are of importance to us. Being green has always been a major tenet of this organization, but it has moved to the forefront in light of recent events. When the transfer facility closed in October 2025 on Route 2, more than 1 in 4 households lost their ability to get rid of their waste or recycling within Iron County. This happened overnight, and people were asking, now what do we do? Also, recent changes in Michigan's material management regulations now require counties to submit material management plans rather than the previous solid waste management plans, introducing a more life cycle-oriented approach to materials management. This will help place greater emphasis on waste diversion strategies such as reuse and recycle, including paper, metal, plastics, glass, and organics. All counties in the Western Upper Peninsula region have entered into an interlocal agreement to create the Western UP Materials Management Planning Committee, and their work will result in a multi-county materials management plan. As an example, Iron County is part of a group that includes Houghton and Barriga County. On that committee, we have members from each of the counties as well as the townships. And for instance, Mark Stauber, who's here tonight and is the head of the Iron County Board, sits on that committee, as well as Mike Stafford, who I don't know, but I don't think is here tonight.
No. Yeah, I couldn't make it.
Mark, do you want to stand up or wait? So at some point, we might ask you to
Oh, yeah, definitely.
piggyback
Like I
on what
said, yes.
Brendon's saying.
Brendon and I have been working hand in hand on this behind the scenes for over a year now.
Now, Brendon is the Materials Management Planning Coordinator for WUPPDR, the Western UP Planning and Development Region. Brendon oversees the planning for the Western Upper Peninsula, including our subgroup. Rise Up has the goal to inform and educate, and we welcome Brendon to aid us in our understanding of materials management. Welcome, Brendon.
Thank you very much, Lori. I appreciate the warm introduction. And thank you, everyone, for being here and for being so patient with me as I run into every issue along the way to get here. But I made it, so we're here and we can have a good chat. So first and foremost, this introductory slide, I wanted to talk about very briefly. One of the most important things that you as community members can do to be a part of this process for the MMP, for the feasibility study, for solid waste management here in Iron County, is to take this survey. There's unfortunately a little bit of a long survey, a lot of data crunching that we're trying to do with this, but this is data that we're directly using as a justification for some of our actions, some of our goals with the materials management planning process. So your input in this is critical to make it known to everybody at the township, city, village, and county level that this is something you want to see. We want to shape this plan in the image of what community members want. So whether you are super for a plan like this or super against recycling or composting or what have you, we still want to hear from you. We want to get your opinions and we want to understand the whole nature of what's going on here. So this is just a little bit of a header in case I had some downtime, but we don't have that. So this will be also at the end of the presentation. So if you don't get it right now, well, it'll be up in a minute. Don't worry, I'll remind you.
If I may, Brendon, you go to the Iron County Chamber's website and also their Facebook page. They have been posting this on there for us. And the reporter a while back also did a couple times in the reporter as well.
It's been out for a while. We're trying to get it closed up here at the end of the month here because we're trying to get our data generation section of the MMP out in front of the committee for approval. But you have a little bit of time left to get your voice on the record. And please be mindful if you do see a tiny URL link, don't use that, or you won't be able to use that. Please make sure you're using the survey document. So.
And if you attend your local municipality meetings, bring it up at their meetings and see if any of those officials have done that survey.
Very true. Thank you. So, as Laura said, my name is Brendon Presnell. I work for the Western Upper Peninsula Planning and Development region. Some background on who I am and where I've been. I am a chemical engineer by education and from Michigan Technological University. I worked at the Filer City Paper Mill down near Manistee, Michigan, making corrugated paper for the PCA company called PCA. Later on, I was a project engineer for a company called CPM, or California Pellet Mill, who made twin screw extruders for predominantly for the polymers industry. That's a fancy word for plastics. They are actually the vendor that works with Clean Tech down in Dundee, Michigan, for bottle-to-bottle manufacturing. So a little bit of background in paper, a little bit of background in plastic, and here I am now in recycling and solid waste management. So a little bit about WUPPDR. We have our hands in a lot of different things, including not just materials management, but also food systems, housing. You may have worked with some of my counterparts in the past, but we do a lot of different work, from master plans to housing programs. So if you know of a municipal group that is working on a project like in any one of these categories, we may be the group to help. Okay, a little bit of context about how we got to materials management planning. Some of you may have seen some of this from a previous presentation I did here at the district library, but I'll try and keep it clipping along. Solid waste management versus materials management planning. The state set off in this direction of diverting as many materials away from landfill to reduce our reliance on landfill as much as possible by a pretty ambitious goal of 2029 to 2030. This is in the context of this last year, about 20 million cubic yards of solid waste went to Michigan landfills. This is actually down quite a lot from.
Can you send me this so I don't have to try to take notes on all of it?
Absolutely.
Could you send it to me as well, please?
Sure. Yeah.
We'll get your
I'm happy to share this presentation afterward, and obviously I'll be sending out my business card to anyone who wants it as well. So this is down quite a bit in terms of volume from previous years, where I believe when we first started, or the state first started this initiative, we were at around 54 million. So it's down quite a lot. And that it has been a bipartisan issue for the last several decades, from governor to governor, trying to diversify our portfolio of how we're handling materials. Here in Iron County, as well as the rest of the 6-county region of the Western UP, we all send our waste to the same landfill, unless you are a GFL customer here. Most of our waste throughout the Western UP goes to K&W landfill in Greenland Township. And right now they are at about 3 years of remaining capacity, and it is dwindling fast. And the important thing is not to say that the sky is falling and we're going to run out of room to put our trash and we're not going to have trash anymore, as much as it is that this space goes very, very quickly. And when it goes quickly, it costs millions and millions of dollars to develop new cells in landfill. And we want to try and make as much progress, or as much use of that space as we possibly can. So diverting to materials recovery facilities, diverting to compost for soil amendment. It makes a lot of sense when you look at the whole picture of what we're really spending here.
Can I ask a question about that previous?
Sure.
Wood Island, GFL takes everything to a place called Wood Island?
To Wood Island, yes.
Is it really an island?
Actually, I'm not entirely sure. That's a better question for my counterpart at the Central UP.
But it said 31 years till full.
Yeah, that is the current estimated
So
capacity
that's a
for that
little ways
landfill.
off.
It's a ways off, and usually when they build capacity, additional cells, it usually lasts for 20, 30 years at a time. But like I said, that's because you don't want to go and put the money together for permitting and engineering and actually building the cell, and then turn around and run out in a couple of years again. So you build out for 25 years at a time. So just an example of how this can step up relatively quickly. K&W is, from 2023 to 2024 went from 55. This is up to $203 a ton, and most recently we've been up at 210 a ton. Now, again, bear in mind this is come back down this is intended to come back down because they are in the permitting process to build more space, and the estimate that I was given was about 135, but it is still we are still one of the highest tipping fees in the state of Michigan, just simply because of the geographic distance that we have to cover to get rid of our solid waste, and that goes the same for other waste streams as well. So again, what changed about Part 115 of the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act? That is the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act is what has governed our solid waste plans and now governs our materials management plans. So what was changed within that as of 2023 is that we have started on a 5-year planning process, as Lori mentioned, 3 of which is hands-on, gathering the data, trying to understand what our goals need to be and how we can move forward into the future. And then the last 2 years would be directly either implementing and monitoring how those implementations have impacted our communities. So one other thing worth noting is that this created benchmark standards for recycling and additional standards for commercial composting, which I don't have much on the commercial composting side in this presentation, but I will go over the benchmark standards very briefly. These are them. These are the benchmark standards. Now, this is what is really the framework for our recycling goals for the state of Michigan. As I mentioned before, we are trying to aim for a very ambitious goal of 30% recycling rate by 2029, 45% by 2030 and beyond. That when I say recycling rate, I'm referring to how much of our total tonnage that we dispose of is recycled or put to some sort of beneficial use versus the total. So a ratio of those two numbers is how we get to that percentage. Now, these deadlines that you see, the first two for 2026 and 2028 are less important for our neck of the woods because we really don't have anything that is considered a urban area other than the city of combined entity of the cities of Houghton and Hancock. But what is worth noting is that the 2032 deadline, that counties with populations fewer than 100,000 people will be required to have some kind of recycling drop-off access for each 10,000 residents within the county. So, and they have to have a specific number of hours that they are open to have this be considered a viable plan as far as the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. Yes.
Where do we fall at? Where does Iron County fall in this?
Iron County is definitely on the 2032. Now, as far as
11,000 number of residents there.
yeah,
How
as
many?
11,000 or something?
11,000, yeah.
yeah, so the key word here is in the 2028 deadline is municipalities. So right now, as far as municipalities are concerned, pretty much all of the cities within the 6-county region of the Western UP have some form of curbside program. And if we're not going to meet our goal of trying to get to 30% recycling rate, then we do have to have some licensing requirements for haulers, which I will explain in a little bit greater detail later on in the presentation. So just to kind of break things down, the way we try to think about these things is in terms of what is going to landfill, what can't really be practically recovered. Organics, relatively straightforward, your yard waste, your food waste. What I like to refer to as specialized recycling, maybe not necessarily something that is difficult to recycle, but might need to go to a special location or a special drop-off for collection. So if you think about, just about every automotive store accepts lead acid batteries, that would be considered specialized recycling in this case. But it also includes bottle deposits at your local grocery store because we are a bottle bill state, and that is definitely something that the state wants to consider. And then single stream is everything else that you can normally think of as recycling, whether it be cardboard, plastic bottles, aluminum cans, etc. So this is the guideline that we have been trying to distribute throughout the region, and people often cite sort of frustration with recycling and not understanding what the current rules are, not having the rules feel like they're changing on them all the time. We're trying to keep that as simple and as straightforward as possible, trying to keep our messaging clear and uniform throughout the region. Because all of our recyclables go to Recycle 906 and Marquette. And trying to get away from using resin codes. I know everyone is probably familiar with the chasing arrows with number 1, number 2, all the way through 7 plastics on the back of their bottles or other materials. This is somewhat misleading in year 2026 because you have things like number 7 plastics is technically other. It is a catch-all for a number of different things, some of which are recyclable, some of which are not. It is often used for industrially compostable plastics. So it is kind of getting pretty messy pretty fast, and hasn't really been a perfect system even from the start. So now we're trying to get people in the direction of, if you can recycle it, you got to think about the shape of the material. Like, is it a container, or a plastic bottle, or a jug that you got from the grocery store? Odds are good that is probably recyclable. If it is some sort of strange film or something that you got in packaging, odds are good that probably won't be, simply because it is no plastic bags, no plastic wrap. It gets tangled in the machinery at the materials recovery facility and causes them to need to shut down. So this is a handy guide that we're trying to distribute to people.
Got a question, got a
I have
question.
a question.
Okay, Lori.
Where do those plastic pouches fit in? Like you can get at the grocery store with
Good
the
question. So like something that you
yeah,
buy
like
like
the
shredded cheese or something in,
or
something like that?
the 90-second pasta containers that that you can heat it up in 90 seconds. You put the whole thing in your microwave and
Mhm. So that one sort of depends, because I think I've seen that one either if it's number 5 polypropylene plastics, then that's usually recyclable. The film on the top is not. Again, it's a matter of boy, it's a very good question. It's a very complicated answer though, unfortunately. A lot of plastics, particularly like little pouch bag that you'd see for maybe like a trail mix or a shredded cheese or something like that. Those are often multiple different kinds of plastics together. That's why you don't see the resin code on them. And there are commercial interests that are very interested in trying to make those, trying to recover those materials. But it is very hard to separate the layers of plastic that go into it, and isn't economically feasible for the producers to do it. So that one would not be recyclable. But that's a very good question. So, but again, that's why plastic bottles, jugs, jars, that's the sort of categorization that we're using. If it's something outside of that, maybe question it a little bit. So,
I have one more question.
yes.
Yeah, what about glass? I don't see glass.
Also a good question. We can't get away from asking a question about glass. Now, the reason why glass is not included on here is because our materials recovery facility does not currently allow it as part of single stream. So it can't all go into your curbside bin, in part because of the sheer distance that we have to cover. There's a lot of instances of breakage of that glass. It gets into things like the cardboard, into the paperboard, and contaminates them and makes them either less valuable or not valuable at all. So Recycle 906 stopped receiving glass in their single stream. However, it is available for if somebody wants to has business in Marquette, they are still welcome to drop off their glass there. So glass is also tricky for a number of other reasons, which I'm happy to answer more questions about at the end. But we will talk a lot about. I can go on and on about glass. So.
I have heard that those plastic clamshells
Mhm.
that you get for, I don't know, salads or spinach or something are not recyclable. Is that true? They're
That's
number
the-
sevens normally.
Mm.
But
If it's number 7, that may be the case, but to my knowledge, that I have not seen those as number 7. But maybe I need to check my greens clamshell.
are they fives? Okay,
I think they're fives.
Are they 5s? Yeah. Yeah, 5 would be recyclable. 7 might be something odd.
Okay.
So
Maybe
I
that's-
can't say for certain. I would have to have a look at it, but in that case, generally speaking, if you aren't sure, the safest bet is to not put it in your curbside.
Yeah.
And this is also actually a good opportunity for folks who aren't sure about that. If you're but you really want to know, if you go on Recycle 906's website, they have a great little tool called a materials wizard. It's basically a search bar, and you can just type in what the item is, and it can tell you the most recent place to or most recently listed place that you dispose of it. Now, bear in mind, it is fairly Marquette centric at this time, and we are trying to collect more data so that we can update it and expand its reach to be more, locally convenient. So this is just that you don't have to worry about not being able to see this text. I just wanted to highlight that we have a handy little guide for Houghton that I'm trying to work on for Iron County. And I could definitely use your help and support to try and fill this out. But this is a guide for sort of those specialized recycle items that we keep updated once a year with the Country Recycling Initiative. And I am trying to develop these for each of the 6 counties. But in some of the counties, the list is a little bit short, and the information is a little bit hard to find just out in the wild. So obviously, again, filling out that survey is a big help toward getting something like this in your local area. So again, just to let you know where we are in general about that 30% goal that I had outlined before. Michigan is currently sitting at 26% as of 2024. But bear in mind, this is also including, again, some very tiny print in the bottom. That includes our bottle deposit, which makes up a very large share of that recycling. So the bottle bill is, despite seeing some decline, is still doing quite a lot of heavy lifting. Meanwhile, you see how we have gone from that pretty teal color to a kind of ominous orange color. That is because there is still a lot of material that is going to landfill that could otherwise be recovered. We are leaving a lot of money on the table in that regard. So this is actually kind of a good thing, despite the ominous orange color, that there is a lot of potential to capture more materials out of our waste stream. And locally, at least within the Houghton and Keweenaw region, and sort of a good representative of Iron and Gogebic and Baraga, and maybe to a very lesser extent Okanagan, we are only sitting at 2% of our recovered materials actually coming from curbside, which is staggeringly low. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I used to say that one of the problems with making recycling economically viable for commercial industry is that aluminum, the most recyclable, profitable, by taking it out of the basic single stream with the bottle and can deposits, is actually hurting the attempts to get private industry involved in recycling.
It's a little bit of a complicated story with the bottle bill. I would say it's a stretch to say that it is harming industry now, or harming the incentive for industry to get involved, because things like cardboard do still have a very high commodity value. We do still collect steel and aluminum in our curbside recycling. Well, right now, and this is just sort of my riffing off of this question a little bit. Right now, the money for bottle deposits that does not get redeemed is taken by the state and put toward brownfield remediation, which I'm not entirely sure when the bottle bill was first enacted, why that was selected as the direction that it went. I understand that it wasn't going to go directly to retailers because they didn't want to incentivize retailers to not collect the deposits. So because right now it is sort of a system that the retailers don't really have a lot of incentives to participate, but they are required by law. But the recycling rate of those materials is quite high. What's interesting about it, though, is the materials recovery facilities that do all of the recycling sorting in the single stream process, they can't redeem that lost deposits. So because those deposits by law belong to the people that paid them, or they belong to that brownfield remediation system that I had mentioned, which is interesting because materials recovery facilities would love to be able to tap into that, and that would definitely help support them quite a lot. But they are trying to update the bottle bill right now. I believe it was put forward by a senator this last year to try and modernize it and bring it into a place where it can sort of recover from some of the losses that it saw during COVID. So to be able to point directly at if it is harming industry from being incentivized toward it, I think the commodity value of aluminum in particular is much lower, even though it's still quite high, than the actual money that can be redeemed from the bottle deposit itself. But honestly, it would be nice to see that go toward advancing recycling in general if it's not redeemed. But that's just my opinion, not the opinions of WUPPDR. Sorry if there's any bottle bill fans. Okay, so again, specialized recycling, bottle bill is carrying a lot of that weight. So a lot of room to go up as far as recyclables are concerned. Now, you'll hear a lot of people say that, well, it all goes into the landfill anyway. I mean, I hear it just about everywhere that I go, and a lot of that originates from people saying, well, I saw it go into this back of the same truck. And oftentimes, again, you'll sort of interrogate that question of, well, what did the truck look like? Did it look like a split body truck? It's like, oh, well, yeah. And it's because there's such thing as a split body truck. Now, we don't see a lot of those up here, so oftentimes you will see materials go into the back of the same truck, but on different days. And oftentimes that is, still people want to believe that what they're doing is the right thing, regardless of whether or not it's necessarily rooted in fact. They normally, when people have told me this, I've asked them, where did you hear that? And they can't quite recall. So there's a lot of, it's sort of a pervasive myth. I think in some cases there definitely could be, but I can tell you that here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, this is where our recyclables go. I have traced it back to where it actually goes. And again, having worked in industry, I can see that manufacturers are actually using these materials. The paper mill that I worked at, our GM used to love having a healthy stockpile of baled cardboard because you can't always get the right size timber when you need it. And when you run out of virgin wood, what do? Well, you have to keep that paper machine running. So that, because every second that you're down on a paper machine, you are losing money. So you got to keep that running, and recycled cardboard is a great way to not only brag about the fact that you are being more environmentally responsible, but also keep your supply chain robust. And that's an important thing to note here, that this has industrial value as well as environmental.
Yes. Yeah, I got a question. You were showing that the double split truck And I'm not familiar with Marquette, but I assume they have a recycling program in the city of Marquette.
They do, because
Okay,
they have.
and it's on that leads up to my question. Is that co-ming?
Yes. That when I'm saying single stream, that is what they are. That is
They put the
commingled.
plastic, the cans, the paper, everything in one recyclable container.
Yeah. So they have they're collecting it all that way, and it all gets shipped over to like so in the event of like WM, for example, in the north, when they bring recyclables to Marquette, to the materials recovery facility, it's just all commingled in one vehicle, oftentimes compacted, and then that materials recovery facility, their whole purpose is to sort it back out and then find end markets for it. So back in the old times before single stream recycling became a thing, a lot of transfer stations were left to their own devices to figure out how to, once we sort this, which is painstaking effort, how do we find an end market to get rid of it? And they had to maintain those contracts, and it was a lot of headache and a lot of overhead and a lot of mess because Recycle 906 is a multi-million-dollar facility designed to mechanically sort and have people hand pick on conveyor belts this material apart. So imagine trying to do that just on a concrete floor in an unheated transfer station garage, and you have a pretty good idea of how you make some people mad.
Could I ask, where is the square on the Wisconsin UP border? Is that like Stevenson or?
Kingsford.
Oh, that's Kingsford. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit. I had to blow up some of these images so the arrows aren't quite as cleanly pointing to the thing. But yeah, so that's Ultra Metal. It's the aluminum tin and aluminum manufacturer that Recycle 906 ships to. So again, why recycling, generally speaking, people feel is too expensive and not financially viable. Well, it's partially because if we treated recycling like we treat trash currently, we would have a lot easier time collecting it and shipping it efficiently. But right now, we have one materials recovery facility for the entire central and western UP there in Marquette, and we have virtually no transfer stations that are equipped to handle this material. So we are missing that bulk transport and transfer station section of this sort of supply chain. And without that, it becomes pretty tricky. The city of Hancock, where I reside, they're currently doing a curbside recycling program, but they haul their recyclables in their compacting collection truck all the way to Marquette from Hancock, no stop. And that is putting enormous wear and tear on their truck. They are having a really hard time swallowing that pill year over year, and they are very excited to try it and be a part of this materials management plan to help fix that. So,
not to mention the gas.
Not to mention gas, yes. Why haul it in a 3-yard container when you could compact it into an 80-yard container in the back of a semi? You know, it only makes sense. And especially since we're covering that kind of distance, and then when we get there, the tipping fee is substantially lower for recycling than even that 135 when K&W is permitted for more space. Recycle 906 is down to $30 a ton, and their intention is to bring it lower if they can, because they are hungry for material. They only run one shift per day, and they are just dying to run more if they can. So they really want this material, and they are willing to, drop that tipping fee almost to the floor. So again, also the other thing, other than the pervasive myth of it all goes to landfill anyway, what drives people to recycle or not? Well, it might seem sort of obvious, but there's data to support that. Access is one of the things that is what is the strongest driver for participation in recycling and getting a high recycling rate. So as you can see, self-reported members of this study from Eagle found that curbside recycling and drop-off they recycled substantially more than when they did not have access to recycling and they had to seek it out. So that is where you have people that are really gung-ho about the environment and actually going out of their way to find these outlets instead of, you know, making them go out of their way. If you make it easy for people, they tend to use it more often. Seems so sort of obvious, but this also has a bearing on trash, on compost, on household hazardous waste. The more access that you provide to people, the more likely you are to actually get things under control as far as separating these things out. And when you don't, people start to get creative, particularly in the way of trash. I think, and I've heard a lot of horror stories about people illegally burning and illegally dumping in the Western UP, and it is quite disturbing for me because it is hard to compete with free and in your backyard, but there's an invisible cost associated with this that I'm trying to highlight to people, and I'm sure nobody here is, you know, out there trying to burn their trash to save a quick buck, but it's important to note that these materials, when they're burned, they release a slew of toxic materials that are really, really damaging to your health. Maybe not necessarily in the short term, but in the long term, and they're especially damaging to the health of your elderly loved ones, to your children, to your neighbors. And when you burn it, it doesn't all go away. It is also there's residue left behind from the ashes that contains heavy metals, that is contaminating the soil, that's contaminating the water. This is really, really nasty all around, and it's something that I think not a lot of people are well educated about, and are, you know, they're not aware of the end consequences of this. So, yeah. Do you have a question?
No, it's okay. Thank you.
So this is again something that we are considering with the MMP process is how do we provide access while at the same time you know, trying to make sure that these commercially pencil out, and at the same time being considerate of how do we avoid you know, encouraging more people to you know, burn or dump or be irresponsible with this waste. How do we invite them in to the proper, more responsible way of managing?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Are there laws against burning certain things? I have a neighbor next door that burned a couch recently.
That's prohibited by law, and it is finable.
Okay.
Yep.
So if I wanted to, and I know about it, I could be anonymous and you call your local police station. What do you do?
So I believe that was the correct answer. Is the DNR. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe they're the ones that issue citations on that. Now, unfortunately, as far as enforcement is concerned, we can't just say, okay, we're going to pass an ordinance and be stronger on enforcement on this, because there also has to be some political will to do this. And unfortunately, I will be the first to admit that when it comes to materials management, I think people have that as kind of a bit of an afterthought, and they don't think about the human impacts of that. And so they think of it as strictly as an environmental issue, and are kind of like, we won't necessarily be so strict, or we'll give a sort of a slap on the wrist. So it's and additionally, for the ones that do care to actually enforce this, it's hard to be everywhere. You know, you can't necessarily track somebody who dumps way out in the woods or on their back 40 very easily. So it's seldom really enforced, except in really, really egregious cases. So it's not to say it's not worth trying, but yes.
One study was done that people that police their area carefully and pick up any trash that is left reduces the number of people go, oh, this is where trash goes. So if somebody does dump, just gotta suck it up, clean it up.
If you can reasonably, I've seen some illegal dump sites that are so awful that I don't think, an
Right.
everyday person can really do the job, and
No.
that's when Eagle needs to get involved. And unfortunately, we do see it a lot more often with our, abundant, beautiful nature and abundant space. We see it quite often, sadly. But I appreciate that. Yes, if you can do something, if you can pick up that trash, if you can leave no trace, that's by all means do it, and people will be less incentivized to litter in particular. So this is one of my favorite graphics that I've been using all over the place. This kind of characterizes what is in our waste stream, what is the potential. And as you can see, I've said a lot about recycling. A lot of people want to hear about recycling in particular, but what we don't talk often is about organics. Organics make up over 38% of our waste stream, according to our data. And this is very much in line with Eagle data, with EPA data. We're not too anomalous in terms of how we behave compared to national or state statistics, even from downstate. And recycling only, while it makes up a significant chunk, between the two, we could be recovering almost half by weight of all of the material that gets thrown out. It's pretty ambitious to try and get all of it, but we have a lot of room to make it pretty
Question before you move from that
Mhm.
is, does that start at the blue and end down here at the light green for the compostable?
The compostable is the green.
Oh no, just the green.
So other organics is the light green, and
I got it
waste
now
is
that
the
I'm
dark
I'm
green.
looking at the title, the lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be clear, it's not organic. You go to the grocery store and buy food that's labeled organic. You're meaning all
Yes, thank you
all
for catching me on my jargon. I get lost in it
biodegradable.
sometimes. When I say organics, I'm referring to all things that will break down with heat and air and water. So when it comes to your yard waste, that's one that is part of that other organics. That is compostable. When it comes to food waste in particular, anything that is produce, vegetables, even dairy and meat scraps, though generally speaking, those are discouraged from most commercial composting operations for reasons I will explain pretty shortly here. So this is where I'm starting to try and look at economies of scale for the region and what we can do to try and improve access. So by improving access, in order to improve access, I am trying to look into what sort of infrastructure investments would we need to make it so that we can have sort of a centralized hub that materials can go to, thus facilitating smaller drop-offs throughout the region. And that kind of happens at 3 different scales as far as I've seen in practice. And if you see on the left, you can see it as usually around between a 12-yard or a 30-yard roll-off container that's hauled by a truck, like you can see there on the left. That's probably the most rudimentary way to do a collection system. Though again, you have to have that truck and you have to have that container, and both of those cost tens of thousands of dollars. So that is a significant investment even for a small community. Beyond that, you in the middle there, you have a smaller stationary compactor. It loads a container, not unlike the one on the left, but it is more of a rigid body container. It's a little bit stronger steel, and it's built to have that material compacted down, usually about 4 times to about a quarter of its volume. And that's important in particular because the fewer trips that we are making at these sort of hubs to the end location where it's being recycled or sorted, the fewer trips that we can make, the more we can reduce costs. And that's how we really reach that point of it being economically viable for us to do recycling. This is how we treat our trash already. Again, if we treated our recycling like we treated our trash, it would be, a much different story financially. Now, when it comes to organics, Organics, you kind of want to avoid shipping those long distance anyway, because it tends to be very wet, it tends to be very heavy. And again, gas prices being as high as they are, it's not really economically viable to try and move food waste around to a very far off site. So you really need to think about how can you do composting very, very locally. And then lastly, on the very far right, that is more of what you would see at a fully functioning transfer station, like an 80-yard container, where we would pack that into the back of a semi truck and make a haul to either landfill or, in this case, potentially to a materials recovery facility. So again, higher and higher price tag for each one, but these are the sorts of pieces of equipment that we're trying to look into for investment. And then again, looking at the organic section, why would we start to compost? Well, again, because farmers in this area, in the Western UP and at large, a lot of them don't have high quality soil on their properties, and they have to ship in soil amendment, and that is quite costly. So if we are every one of us is producing food waste, and there's the means to recover it, why wouldn't we try to break it down into a soil amendment? So composting does not necessarily need to be an expensive endeavor, but on a commercial scale, it can be really pretty beneficial. It can, if this is something that can be set up in your community, it can create more jobs than a landfill or an incinerator, which we don't have really any of. But it keeps that material out of the landfill, and because we don't have any kind of methane capture on our landfills, again, it's a very expensive piece of technology, that all of that material that would be broken down into a very strong greenhouse gas would now be kept out of that landfill, processed with air as opposed to in an oxygen deprived environment, and thus making it so that it is not creating damage to the environment. So there are pretty substantial benefits, both in terms of the economics of it as well as the environmental impacts. And there are a few methods here that if anyone's curious about, I can go into, but in general, these are relatively large scale composting systems, many different ways to do this. The most sort of economical on a commercial scale is that windrow composting. So again, just a big pile that we're turning. But as far as backyard composting goes, a 3-bin system or a sort of, I think they refer to it as sort of like a lasagna system or a layered system. Both work great for our environment and can be as low cost as the cost of some hardware cloth. And we actually did a workshop up in Houghton that we're hoping to spread to more areas of the Western UP on how to build these and educate people on community composting. This is one of the resources that we produced to help people understand the sort of rules of composting, similar to the rules of recycling. And yeah, I have a few of these if people are interested. So again, if you want to take this, or I can send a digital copy to anyone who's willing to have it and willing to give it a go. We have a lot of knowledge here with WUPPDR about composting. And despite all of my talk about recycling, despite all of my talk about composting, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that the best things that you could possibly be doing is looking at your habits. Looking at, instead of composting, how do you reduce your buying so that you are only buying what you need? If you do have food that is on its way out, how do you make sure that it gets eaten up, either by you or by an animal or by somebody, rather than going straight to compost? We need to sort of think as a community about how we are, sort of acclimated to a system that created single-use plastics, that created, grocery stores with everything under the sun that you can get, and we need to try and think a little bit more open-mindedly about how we are treating these things, and making sure that, you know, if you have something that still has use, take part in a buy nothing group. Do we have a buy nothing group here in Iron County that is familiar? Okay. This is something that, you know, is set up in Baraga County and Houghton County. Basically it's on Facebook Marketplace, where if you have like half a bottle of shampoo, or, you know, some dog food that your dog didn't like that particular food, post it on that and get it to somebody who would use it rather than throwing it out. These are the sorts of things that you can, like, reuse and upcycling and donating. These are the best ways that you can really have the most impact on the environment, as well as somebody else's life. So, and this is the last thing, as I'm going to sort of transition into question mode. These are the MMP goals that we had recently gone over. As you can see, I've kind of gone through and touched on a little bit of these in little ways throughout this presentation. But the important ones, particularly for Iron County with respect to the feasibility study, are expanding services currently from Crystal Falls transfer station no longer being functional. Expanding services is, you know, reinitiating services altogether. Because I've talked a lot about recycling, but I understand that first things first, we need to walk before we run. We need to get trash systems back online. And that's, once you have the trash systems back online, then you can start to think about how you are diverting those waste streams. So this is very much in line with materials management planning, despite the fact that we're not going straight for recycling right away. And additionally, hauler licensing requirements. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned about this is one of the parts of the plan that is necessary to make a transfer station here in Iron County under municipal control feasible is something that is authorized through Part 115 called flow control, bringing material, requiring by hauler licensing.
I'm so sorry.
Requiring by hauler licensing that all haulers, whether it's GFL or another municipality, that all materials, as far as trash is concerned, go to a specific location. And that is done to make sure that we have a stable baseline for our income and make sure that the facility pencils out and is there for the long haul. No pun intended. So, those are the two goals that I think are most relevant. But obviously this is still pending approval. We put it before the committee here in July. We're going for approval from the committee in August. And at that point, it'll go out for the townships, cities, and villages for their individual, comments on this and their official approval. Once I have 2/3 of approval from municipalities within each county, then it can go on to the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy for final approval and adoption of materials management. So this is a draft of a draft of a draft, and obviously, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about it, again, going to direct you to the survey, but also give me a call. Let's have a conversation. I would love to hear from you on this.
Okay. Oh, you're not finished. Go ahead.
Yeah. Important asks. I think I mostly got all of this across, but there are a few important things that I wanted to ask of the audience here, particularly if you're interested in helping along the feasibility study. There are just certain things that only people who live here can really answer, and particularly, connecting me to local contractors for heavy equipment, for rentals. That's very important for the viability of composting. I have a few contacts in Iron County that I have reached out to with respect to larger scale composting operations, but identifying local landscapers, identifying any farms that would have demand for this. This is important to making the case that some kind of composting could be viable down the road. And especially when it comes to the transfer station, directly, if you know anybody that worked at the Crystal Falls transfer station under WM, I would love to talk to them because I want to understand more about what their experience was, what their day-to-day operation looked like. Right now, most of my context for this is my work at the Houghton County Transfer Station. So I'm working with them on another feasibility study, trying to get their opinions, but more information could not hurt me. So please, if you know anyone, if they're willing to talk to me, have them reach out to me.
If you reached out to Waste Management, either in one of our counties
Mhm.
or headquarters,
Mhm.
wouldn't they tell you names of employees?
You'd think,
Yeah,
but they have to talk to me first.
and they don't take your calls. Oh, boy.
Yeah, if I may, Marge, when I first heard, through the grapevine that supposedly our transfer station was closing, I reached out directly, because actually I have a brother-in-law that drove for them for many years. I reached out to him first. He had no idea that it was closing. He said, "What are you talking about closing?" He said. So then I reached out some more. Well, then I got a call from Dr. Hahn, and he says, "Yeah, I got firm thing. I made some phone calls, blah blah blah." So I have, to this day, I have not gotten a response back from Waste Management. I was trying to find out if it was a temporary closure or what their future plans were in regards to if they're going to sell the facility or whatever. And to this day, I've never heard nothing. Brendon and I, as Brendon mentioned, he's been trying to get answers. We toured the facility. A gentleman from Marquette came down to let us in because their real estate that's handling it is out of Traverse City. So of course, they're not going to send a salesperson all the way up here. But anyways, and that gentleman, he was just relatively new at the company, so he couldn't, answer any questions either. He did give a name to Brendon for contact information to try to get something, but as we know, and why not give out the information? If you want to sell the facility, help try to sell it. I mean, that's part of the, with the feasibility study that our county board has agreed upon and signed on, to have done through WUPPDR with Brendon here, is that, we're hoping that, the numbers come back saying, okay, it'd be feasible for the county to pick it up, and run it, or do we try to find somebody to run it? Will be another, probably an option. The biggest problem is also, once we find out, is how are we going to pay for the transfer station, and equip it, because you're going to have trucks and everything else to go along with it. And if I may also go back to when Brendon was talking about taking the plan back to the municipalities, I encourage you, is if you don't go to your local townships or city meetings, go to them. Tell them, Brendon has reached out, I don't know how many times, tried to set up town hall meetings. He did it on this side of the county. He tried setting up on the other side of the county and was not getting no response, from the commissioners, trustees, city managers, the supervisors, other than, Mike Stafford, which, of course, he also sits on the management committee now for the townships. He's a representative for the townships. But I mean, it's sad to hear. I mean, I go to the meetings myself, and, I get some questions back at me. Well, we're not doing anything now. Why should we? What's going to happen if we don't? And I said, well, the state can come in. And if we don't pass a plan, and it's got to be a 2/3, passing, the state can set up a plan. And, do we want the state to control what we do with our stuff? I think let's keep it in our local hands is going to be our best bet. And let's hope that, the study comes back and it'd be feasible for the county to pick it up. I mean, there's different alternatives for different statutes with the state that Brendon, has talked to us about our committees, how we can pay for different things, but it won't be enough to actually purchase the transfer station and equip it and do everything else. So, it would have to go back to, a vote to the voters. Okay, do you want to pay X amount on your taxes, to have our own facility again?
Too bad it's not on our ballot this time around.
Yeah, well, you don't have the information, so, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're trying to move as quickly as we can,
Yeah.
but it's
It's
like
a process.
it's a process, and it's hard information to get a hold of because we don't have a lot of transfer stations that are municipally owned anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
a lot of people are aware, Dixon County owns the transfer station, Dixon County and GFL operates, they have a contract with them. Before that, GAD had a contract to operate it for Dixon County,
Mhm.
so.
So what we can do is do the survey by July 25th,
Just end of the month,
end of the month?
Yep.
Okay.
but
And
yeah,
Let
I won't
everybody
close
else
it
know.
down on you.
and go to our local meetings.
Yes,
Mhm.
Yes,
those are very
definitely go to
important.
your local meetings, get them involved.
The more people hear about this issue, the more they're apt to listen when I
Right.
show up and I start
Yeah.
to tell them, here are the options.
Especially in the townships, because, I don't want to pick on the townships, but they said, we never did anything with garbage before. Why should we get involved with recycling now? Or garbage, and I think they don't realize it's a county-wide situation, whether you live in a township, live in a city, live in a village.
I almost think of it as on the same level as utilities.
Yes.
Everybody has trash and everybody has to We
Very
all
true.
have to deal with it.
Very true. It's not-
So our local governments need to come together and we
that's-
need to advocate for
And
that.
that is number one on my list of goals, is
Yes.
trying
No,
to
I'm
cross
just-
those jurisdictional boundaries, because everyone
Uh-huh.
is convinced that they're on their own, and it's a lot of that is just a product of not having the bandwidth to go to, from their township board meeting to another, and that's why I'm trying to run around and connect everyone. But the people who live here can also be a part of that. Point them in the direction of this process. Try and get them to work together more.
I have a question. The previous slide, you showed you have two things that, goals you have and you need approval. And correct me if I'm wrong, but do you want to wait till you can compile all the data from the surveys before you go to that? Or is that that is not connected to the surveys?
So as far as the surveys are concerned, that is more to do with the survey's been out for about let's see, when did I launch that? It's been out for about 6 months now.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to circulate it as much as I can. It has sort of died off in terms of the amount of people who have responded to it, but I'm still trying to collect some last few data points, because I knew I was going to do this presentation about a month out, and I knew that I was going to do another one for the Baraga Chamber of Commerce. So I wanted to try and see if we could get a few more people on there to make their voices known. But at the same time, when it comes to the sorry, bear with me, been talking up here for a minute, so I'm starting to lose consciousness a little bit. Lack of oxygen. As far as where the survey becomes really relevant in the MMP, that is more the reason why I'm closing it up at the end of this month officially, is because the next section that we are putting in front of the committee is the generation and facilities inventory sections. And I think that is more of where I will be actually breaking down some of these goals in a little bit greater detail. So these are basically just goals and what the general spirit of the objective is, and what is a general benchmark that shows us that we're making our way there. And we have a good amount of data that has informed these already, but where I'm going to be talking about these in very granular detail is in the data or the materials generation and the facilities inventory section. So that's.
I wanted to share one other thing with you. So I used to take my recyclables, which was, what'd you call it, single stream?
Mhm.
Okay, to waste management.
Yes.
And there was the rumor this just ends up in the trash. So the person working there, I said, "Is that true?" And she said, "No, no, no." And at one time they were sending it to Eagle River.
Mhm.
And then the next time I asked her, maybe a year later, it was going to Marquette. But she says, "This is what happens." So they had these big bins out there, single stream, you just put your recyclables in there. But if no one's watching, somebody throws their garbage in there. You go by, you can recycle plastics, you see somebody's playground equipment. She says, so when people abuse it and don't put what's allowable in there, she called it contaminating, and the whole bin went into the landfill. So I said, we are shooting ourselves in the foot, because there was nobody there. So I think any of these things that you propose for recycling or even for composting, you've got to have a person there that makes sure, otherwise it ruins it for everyone. So you have to have, that other piece of the pie is going to be labor, to watch and guide what people are putting in there, because people will abuse it.
And that's exactly true, and that's been proven time and time again. And that's part of why part of this plan has been to work specifically where there are already municipal personnel on site, because that is something that we can actually work with the municipalities on. That's part of why I'm interested in this. And so transfer stations are a shoe-in for exactly that. Drop-offs are a little bit harder because they tend to be a little bit further out, but in both cases, drop-off or transfer station, the other end of it is that you want these to be successful, for these to be widely used, they have to be in kind of a common thoroughfare, be it a transfer station where they bring their trash on a regular basis, which a lot, I think, upwards of like 65% of the Western UP relies on drop-offs as opposed to curbside. And those have regular hours. They have gates that lock at night, and so they have somebody there supervising it to make sure that doesn't happen. And when it comes to drop-offs, it's a little bit trickier. You know, you have to have somebody there, just like you're saying.
There wasn't really somebody watching.
Yeah,
I'd
a lot
like
of
to
people want to
share-
say, why don't we just get a dumpster? And that's
Yeah.
exactly why you don't.
I want to give this to you.
Mhm.
Okay, so as part of the Rise Up Indivisible group, we had a little environmental group to make things happen. So plastic film can be and is now being recycled.
Mhm.
You can take your bread bags, your ice bags, your wood pellet bags, all that soft plastic film, and you can take it to Crystal Fresh grocery store. They have a bin there, and all of that gets sent back to their distributor,
Mhm.
and the distributor bales it, and from the other stores, if they're doing it with them, it gets sent to next trash, and it
Yep.
becomes composite decking. And through their program, because Rise Up was on that program, and we generated so much plastic film, I put the Iron County watershed on the same infrastructure. And in the course of, I'm guessing maybe 3 years, they awarded us benches, and those
I
benches.
saw your article, actually. I wanted to include that in the presentation, so I'm sorry I spaced on that one, but I did see that,
No,
actually.
so I'm thinking if they've changed requirements now, but to me, if we didn't get anything, the plastic film's being collected and it's being made into something, it's being repurposed, and it's in the United States. So if I share this with you, I know how many other places aren't aware of, what you can do with plastic film.
Right. And Trex is one that is actually like one that I am aware of when it comes to plastic films. It has been a hard thing we produce so much plastic film, but they have done a really, really great job of incorporating that into their products. So that is one of, again, those sort of specialized recycle items that those depositories tend to be able to take anything that is sort of a stretchy plastic, be it a Ziploc bag or be it your grocery bags. They are generally recyclable.
Wood pellet bags for, because they're
Yeah.
just a plastic bag. There's a whole law on there, you can see the whole list of them. But then again, you had to watch because people were putting plastic bottles in it and going,
Yeah.
no matter what you have out there, they can't quite get it.
The sign will never be big enough, is the rule.
But those benches are all over the Iron County community.
Mhm.
There's one out here. There's one at the library in Crystal Falls. They're at senior citizen centers. They're at the museum, the schools, in the grocery store, even for people to sit down who don't want to walk around while their partner is getting the groceries. So yeah, they're all over.
It's a good thing to see. Yes, there in the
I
back.
know this is not your responsibility, but I think what we're proving here is that the whole recycling program needs to be better incentivized for normal people to actually do. And even if that incentive is picking it up for you, things like making it that much easier. But is it not true that so much of what we do as individuals is really like a drop in the bucket compared to the recycling necessities of corporations? And
So if we're talking about energy usage, if we're talking about greenhouse gas emissions, I completely agree with you saying like, okay, this is on the consumer. Well, the consumer needs to be more responsible. It's a drop in the bucket, like you said, compared to what industry produces. Now, when it comes to recyclables, in my opinion, I think a lot of problems could be solved by what's called extended producer responsibility, where effectively, much like the bottle bill, when we buy something, we are charged a very small fee up front, and that goes toward the eventual disposal of this. Additionally, it's the onus is on industry to design things that can be broken down and either reused or broken down and made into new products. And there hasn't been a lot of political will to move that needle. I think that would be much more impactful than consumer change. But I think at the same time, changing consumer habits does have a big impact, because you go to a grocery store, it is very hard to be a conscious consumer and buy some kind of alternative to plastic packaging. So trying your best to make it known that this is a product that you would buy because it's in a more sustainable package, that also it does have an impact on industry at the end of the day. So
has the UP or Michigan ever considered doing a bring your own bag program to the grocery stores, where grocery stores actually charge for bags?
As far as statewide, I have not seen that, but I have seen that on the local level. There's actually a really interesting program that I originated outside of Michigan. It's called Boomerang Bags, where they were basically doing some upcycled fabric that they would basically leave out a kind of take a bag, leave a bag situation, just for people to do. And it wasn't a charge per bag program, because it was upcycled material and volunteer labor. So that was a very cool local project that I've seen. But it's as far as other systems where there's a sustainable alternative, there was a different instance that I had seen down in, I think, Washtenaw County, where just one, dare I say it, crazy individual decided that she was sick of seeing takeout containers just going in the trash, going in the trash, going in the trash. So she invested a lot in basically a bunch of Tupperware, and started working with local restaurants, started to understand the local food code, and worked with those restaurants to offer, like, for I think $1.50, you could get a sustainable, reusable container for your restaurant takeout. And then they had a place where you could deposit the reused containers, and she would go to the local church and painstakingly wash them all.
I mean,
and
I'm sure in
dry
India
them
they
all.
have steel containers. Everybody uses the same steel little. So
Right.
anyway.
Yeah, and like that's why I say it's a little crazy. Is one individual doing that one. There are much bigger commercial scale versions of that, but that was one dedicated person.
Got a question right back here.
Yes.
I really appreciate being better informed and understanding where we're headed, but I'm wondering if you have any survival techniques for today. We live in the city limits of Gastra, so we have curbside pickup of trash. We've never had curbside pickup of recycling. But we also have property that's been a construction project in Stambo Township, and which has nothing. And we were going to the Vilas County. Somebody say the name for me.
Eagle Resources, I think it's called now.
Yeah, we were hauling all the way to there, and now they're not taking recycling anymore. So now the only option is Quinnipiac. I think the only I'm hoping you're gonna, is to take both trash and recycling, is to go all the way to Quinnipiac, which is, if you're doing anything else with your life, to do that on a regular basis is a challenge. So is like, can the hive mind here, or do you have some suggestions as to how, until any of this gets implemented, do we all survive? We have trailers full of trash in our backyard right now because we're not going to do the dump thing you were talking about, but we can't get it there.
Yeah. I wish
That's what I said.
Yeah, I wish I had more options for you, but again, like looking back a couple of slides, it's like to do this in a way that is economical. It's you end up relying on a relatively large system, because just trying to load it into have one of your neighbors loaded into a truck and make the trip together. That can get you by, but that's not a long-term strategy, and it's not fair to ask people to have to like work, operate like that, to take time out of their day to make, trips for the neighborhood to get rid of trash and recycling, because we're all producing this. So
Well, that was the sentiment that was shared amongst our group here, quite a good sized group last month, which is after that we invited you to come. And we recognize that what it's going to take is a body of citizens who will advocate for a program to be put in place so that we not only have the service, but we know we're doing good.
Right.
And that will require working with our county government, our township governments. So there we are
I
again.
would say this, the county is pushing forward, we're just trying to do something, but we need the support of the local municipalities, like Brendon says, it's gotta be a 2/3 pass.
in most curbside contracts or like drop-off management arrangements are at the municipal level, not even at the county level. The county is just sort of acting as a sort of coordinating body to help facilitate this process.
But Brendon, more specifically, are there like places, is there a list someplace, like if we're going to Marquette for doctor's appointments or for, for the weekend or whatever, are there places in Marquette that take non-residents waste? Are there places in Escanaba?
906.
Recycle 906 will take your recyclables.
Will
They
take your
cannot
recycling.
take your trash.
Is
So
there-
that's a bit inconvenient, unfortunately.
Is there a master list of those kinds of things anywhere that's available to us?
For the entire Western UP?
That'd be
Iron
nice.
County, Western UP, yeah.
Not currently, and that's again the facilities inventory that I was alluding to. That section is I'm aiming to have a draft of it out in August. So
Okay.
that's something I am actively working on, but it is difficult to nail down every last facility in the Western UP. So it's been a lot of a heavy lift, especially since so much of it is so far away from where we are in Utah. So.
And if I may, as far as trash pickup, I do know a lot of residents in the townships have gotten together and formed a spot and got contracts with GFL, whether it's an individual can or even more like what the businesses have, the big dumpsters, and you lock it. I mean, different areas, I know that brought them in even years ago, even when the transfer station was still here. I know in Chicago and Lake, there was some people that gotten together and they had a big dumpster there and they all pitched in because it was cheaper than going to the transfer station for them and more convenient. So it's stuff like that you definitely can look into. I just recently was made aware that Waters Meat has a transfer station, but I don't know what or anything can be brought there from our county. And if they do any recycling, I have no idea. I just recently
And
heard that.
it's my understanding GFL will do that, but they'll bring that dumpster, but they won't take recyclables. They're
Well,
only going to take trash.
But I was just going to revert back to, you said about, you're in Gastra and they don't do recycling. GFL picks up the garbage there. I think if you approached your city commission and got enough people there that was interested, then they could go to GFL, because GFL is doing curbside recycling in Crystal Falls. It's offered in Crystal Falls. People don't have to participate if they don't want to, but it is available.
Crystal Falls Township,
Crystal Falls Township does their own thing.
they have a dumpster, but they have someone contracted in to drop off the dumpster on, the first Wednesday of the month, and then they pick it up. So
Yeah,
there's
Caspian-
companies out there that,
Caspian does the same thing. They have that with GFL.
Yeah.
And again,
you have to go to your municipality and say
Yes.
that, it's easy enough to just have someone drop off a dumpster and pick
I
it
know.
up for a
I
day.
used to, before I got on the county board, I was on the city Caspian board. And that's how Caspian got called. People came to the city and asked, could we have some kind of recycling? So at the time, Wolsey King was our city manager, contacted, it was actually at that time, it was Iron Line Disposal, and just opened up the transfer station over there. Contacted them, and that's where it started from there. And even at one time, when Waste Management bought out Iron Land, they did it for a while, but then they stopped it. And of course, the GFL is still doing it to this day in Caspian. I can't remember if it was the first Saturday of the month or the second Saturday.
And Mark, that's still restricted to private.
It's just strictly to Caspian, yeah.
And similarly, if there is, community interest in trying to do a cleanup event, something like getting rid of that trash just to get by for another day, I am happy to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you coordinate that with whatever contacts I have. But again, it's a Band-Aid to get you by for another day while we try to get the municipalities to really take this seriously and not just say, hopefully the private haulers will come through and
And if I may, I
do
know
another good.
GFL at one time was not the only contractor that came in and recycled waste management. So I don't know if they're still in existence, if they were bought out or not, but I know Eagle Waste used to come in down here in Colony. And then there was another outfit.
They're Republic.
Republic
is-
now?
owns them now.
You know, they used to come in down here in Colony as well. I don't know if they still do or not.
Yeah, they're currently the ones that are operating the Watersmeet transfer station,
Okay.
as far as I understand.
What is that called?
Republic or
Public? Yeah.
There's, you know, the fact that everybody in this room could be composting unless they're living in an apartment. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's not rocket science. And you're talking about 38%, I think, on your chart there, that's not being processed at all. Everybody can do it. You just need 2 garbage cans. And a couple of tubs that, with a locking lid that you keep in your yard. I recycle 100% of my kitchen.
Awesome. And again, you don't have to necessarily have a garden either. You know,
I do have a garden.
It's great if you have a garden, but I, for the longest time, didn't compost. I was like, I don't need compost. I'm not a gardener. So, but like, you could still compost and just to reduce your food waste.
Because a rind is such a terrible thing to waste.
We just moved up here not too long ago, and from the township we had in Wisconsin, our township got together with some of the other townships in the county, and we worked together with our local garbage place pickup, and they agreed to drop off several dumpsters at each town hall, and then people from the township would take turns when they had like 2 nights. They had it like a Wednesday evening and then a Saturday, and they would take turns being there to make sure what went in was what was supposed to. And then they contracted, they got together with another garbage service in the county, and then between that, they were able to kind of make it worth their while to haul the recyclables up to Eagle. And that worked out really well for all the time we were there. People were really good about it.
Yeah. And that's again why part of, the smaller communities, Keweenaw, Ontonagon, I'm advising that to be kind of a more, I guess, long-term solution for them, because realistically, their population isn't as substantial as it is here in Iron County, and a more permanent solution isn't really, it doesn't really pencil out. So, but I think they deserve to have something, and with the political willpower of working together and, listening to me prattle on about recycling and trash and composting, they can make it happen. It's very doable.
So I've gotten the feeling that there's a belief that people aren't willing to pay for recycling and convenient waste disposal. I believe the opposite's true. And with that in mind, and setting this budget aside, my first question is, what would be the best practices you'd put in place in Iron County? And then my second question is, with the budget in mind, how do we as citizens engage our local officials to make the money available to do that?
Okay, let me make sure I'm understanding the question. So are you looking for like a
What would our plan be like? What would be the best plan for Iron County if money wasn't an issue? Because it seems I'm serious.
I mean,
pick up through whole county.
yeah, I mean, the most effective strategy as far as providing access to people if money was not an issue is, a very robust curbside recycling program.
Okay.
And one of the things that's included on this list is, again, if we're not reaching our recycling benchmarks, then it is for the MMP to be adopted, we have to include hauler licensing agreements, which I haven't really explained in great detail, but basically set terms before we sign any contract with any hauler at any level that certain language will be included in that contract. And that's some of that language would need to be that Wherever curbside trash is offered, curbside recycling is also offered.
Okay.
Now, at a government level, we can't dictate how much that costs, but we can say that it is required for us to consider you a licensed hauler in our region.
So given that, then what you need us as citizens, I mean, we can go to our township meeting and say, you know, we want this, but we're not telling them what it is exactly we want.
Yeah, and depending on which township that you're in, it depends on, I guess, the scale of your population. If you're out here in, let's say, like Mastodon Township, for example, you would probably be trying to talk to your township board about creating regularly occurring collection events, trying to do cleanup events, trying to have some sort of contract either with, you know, GFL to do a pickup, or potentially even, you know, if there's a company that does, you know, C&D waste or sand and gravel or landscaping, they oftentimes have the same equipment. They oftentimes might be interested in helping out for a particular instance if they have a 30-yard roll-off container or something to that effect. Now, if you're here in
Stambaugh,
it's Stambaugh. I don't off the top of my head know what Stambaugh's population is. Do you happen to know?
It's like
the township or
the township.
The township, yeah, because the Stambaugh is not incorporated. The city is incorporated.
Yeah, I definitely don't have the unincorporated. There's too many to count.
I might have it.
I have it in my laptop, I'm sure. But
Stambaugh has 1,325 housing units.
okay, so
probably about.
with that in mind, you know, provided that the neighboring townships are also of a similar mindset of, hey, we want to do something, you may be able to justify a more permanent drop off, not necessarily, you know, of the scale of a transfer station or even of having a curbside program, but something that could plug into a local transfer station somewhere down the road. Now, again, that requires that transfer station to exist and to be a reasonable distance away. So that's why one of the first priorities is get those major hubs in each of the counties online to facilitate a drop off like one in Stambaugh, or, you know, a collection event in like Mastodon or someplace else. So it lowers the financial barrier for the townships to do something about it. But right now, if you were to say, hey, we want a drop off, that would be enough to spur on the conversation with them, and direct them my way so that they, you know, say, hey, I went to this presentation. I talked with this guy. He talked a lot and he told us a lot of things about trash and recycling, and you should talk to him and you should really start taking this MMP process seriously. And that's something actionable for them to do, and gives me an opportunity to have a conversation with them and get their concerns and try and explain to them that there is a business case for some of these. It's a matter of thinking within our means for these things.
And you're there to assist.
Absolutely. That's what I'm here to do.
Cool. Yeah. So if there are no other questions for you, I'm sure that if I open it up, if we could talk for another hour about this issue. My concern is that some of you are here for the rest of this meeting and we should continue on.
Yes.
So Brendon, thank you. Do you have anything more to say?
Thank
you very much.
I'll take that. I always give updates at our county board meetings, and also our monthly meetings up in Hancock at WUPPDR building are also open to the public. You know, if we can zoom in, it's on a link for Zooming, that's always available. Well,
Thank you, Mark, for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you. Are you driving back, Brendon?
Not immediately. I'll be sticking around till the end of the meeting if anyone has any other questions.
Okay. By the way, Brendon Presnell is a member of Houghton. Keweenaw Indivisible. Give him a hand.
All right.
It's not recording now.
Pardon?